What's next? Sometimes when you have a job and you're given a project that you feel, oh, you should be able to complete, but it involves relying on other people to complete their parts of the job. Sometimes you gotta turn to the powers that be, and when they say, why haven't you completed your project? And the excuse saying, well, they haven't done their job, doesn't work out really well because you're kind of at the bottom of the barrel. So you have to turn to them and just simply say, I'm sorry I failed you. I can't complete this job with the information provided to me. Because sometimes you're given a project that is doomed to fail. And those who give you the project are aware that it's a difficult situation, but they know that from previous experience that you have been able to accomplish the close to impossible by pulling together information from sources outside of the normal sources, I guess. Because when you work with other people, when you're working with a group, and they haven't quite completed their parts, sometimes you really can't go and say, oh, they haven't done their job, because unfortunately they know how to weasel out of their job. So to find creative ways of outing them without blaming them. It is interesting. It's a political minefield. But once you take responsibility on yourself, because honestly, what's the worst thing that can happen? Them blaming you for failure. So, why not just pull the pin now? Why drag it out? And that's what I have learned recently, is that I have been given an opportunity where I had been able to complete 85 to 90% of the project. But still that last 15 to 10% involved input from others, which was really not that complicated. All they had to do was verify the information that they supplied is true. But unfortunately they refused to do that, or were unable to do that, or most likely their information was not true. So I couldn't complete that last part of it. And everything I did relied on their part. So once asked by the higher-ups, the director, and said, well, I really need this completed. And I had to turn to my boss, who was a really nice person, who was kind of thrown into between me and the director. And now she's my boss. And I have to tell her flat out, I was given an impossible situation. I'm not going to blame others, but by the information, by the resources supplied to me, I was able to complete this much using outside sources, but I still need this tiny bit to be filled out in order to sign this off as true. At which point, she pulled others in the meeting and got the fun little response of them trying to push off their responsibility on others. At which point, it became evident that they didn't know what they were talking about, and my boss, rather than continuing the endless loop of, well, why can't we get this information, and we should go to this one, go to this one, she just said, okay, her and I are going to establish a one-on-one meeting to discuss this project, and I can show her where my data came from, and we can work our way through it. And it really is a minefield. But at least me, by saying I have failed, it basically knocked all the fighting, all the others, and say, okay, since this guy can't accomplish his job, we'll have to rely on others. The others who are supposed to do the job, I now have to step up because I've already admitted that I can't go any further, that I can't go, the data that I have is true, but can't be backed up because I have failed to get supportive documentation. The support documentation is going to come from them. So when you're afraid to fail, sometimes just give in to it. Your biggest fear might be your biggest opportunity to succeed. I feel so much better because I don't want to disappoint my boss. She's a really good person and she's thrown into the lion's den pretty quickly. But she knows that I'm going to back her up, and I know that she's going to back me up. And this old project that has reared its head again, that was supposed to be tied up and handled by others, because, like I said before, I couldn't complete it because others weren't doing their job. I'm trying to say is sometimes when you're doomed to failure, it's better to stop dragging it out and just admit you failed and move forward from there. Because it really, once you admit that you failed, even though you really didn't fail, but if you admit you failed, it takes their power away from them, because they've been, my fear of failure is my biggest weakness, and they've been using it against me for at least 2 months now. Now I took it away from them because I've admitted I failed and it can't go any further. But that's just how life is, I guess. What's next? I'm going to continue with just a walk, filming a walk, and right now I'm going to do a few minutes of just scenery, because I might want to use it later.
Why am I looking at you? You're a picture in a frame. I make believe you're next to me, but I know it's not the same. Why am I looking at you? You're a pixel on a screen. Your animating principle is nowhere to be seen. Why am I lost in a loveless fantasy when somebody real is waiting out there for me? Why am I looking at you? I've enjoyed the years I've wasted, but the time has come to face the fact that none of what I see is true. So I'm gonna stop looking at you. Oh, I'm gonna stop looking at you. Oh,
Just me enjoying my walk. What's next?